I mean, I'm sure these kids have probably never seen a hockey stick before, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion at first, and a lot of children think it's a weapon, and there's a learning curve showing them how to hold the stick. But, especially in the Philippines on our last trip, they learned really quickly, and it was really special to watch. And by the end, they were asking about real rules, like how offside work, and is there shifts, because before it was all right, there's 20 kids here playing 10v10, and that's how it's going to happen, right? But they really wanted to get into the nitty gritty of the game of hockey, which was special.
Wow, that's really cool. From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Foundation in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities. Okay.
Hello, here I am talking into the microphone. Look at that. It's actually a pretty reasonable recording level until I talk more quietly.
Yeah, don't talk quietly.
All right. I never talk quietly.
That's not true.
Well, the level might be quiet. I don't know. I was at the Howl last night, the live version of the podcast that you host, and we ended up having to use a backup microphone that the venue had on hand. They had given us a wireless microphone.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which is very nice, wireless microphone. But what they hadn't given us was a wireless microphone that had batteries that weren't about to die. So after the second time that the batteries died during Natalie Thill's opening remarks, I went and retrieved It was a condenser microphone of some kind made by the Shure people. It wasn't a horrible microphone, but the level was
super
much
quiet.
Lower than you would want for a live event someplace. It would have been fine if I were miking my acoustic guitar and singing loudly or something. But,
and in a climate-controlled studio, and
Right, exactly. But a couple of times, you had to really talk into it. You had to be right on top of it like this. And a couple of times, people signaled that they couldn't hear me when I was, and I talk kind of like this when I'm emceeing an event like that. And finally, I said, my wife usually tells me to use my indoor voice. Are you telling me I need to use my outdoor voice?
Almost every single day, I will be talking to Erin, and she will say, "You're shouting, dude. Can you stop shouting?" And it's just like, I was not aware because I can barely hear myself.
Well, it's like what you do when you're talking to somebody and they're on their cell phone in a loud place. You're talking to somebody, they're out in the world somewhere, and you're sitting in your climate-controlled living room.
Yeah.
You have no need to be doing the yelling. They're the ones that are doing the yelling. But I don't know. It's what's the term I'm looking for? Code switching. It's code switching, but like volume switching.
I have nothing else to say about that.
All right. Well, then I'll ask you this question. Ethan, you went to college, right?
I did, and I'm still paying for the privilege.
What was, aside from paying the state of New York your tuition and fees, what was the most community-minded thing that you did while you were an undergraduate?
Are you talking about in terms of community service or community in that I'm working with a group of people?
I meant community service, doing a car wash to benefit.
Sure. I think as part of my sociology class, I had to volunteer somewhere. And so I think I volunteered at one of the old folks' homes, and I was making food or making sandwiches or something. I did that for a couple of weeks. But honestly, I wasn't very community minded when I was in college. It took me graduating and becoming a person in my late 30s to really focus on the benefit I could bring to the community, which I'm doing now.
And of course, you went to college not very far from the place where you grew up. So
exactly.
You knew the community.
Yeah, and I wanted to stay here, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think about many college students who get dropped into a place and they don't have any prior connection. You think
Right.
about across campus here at St. Lawrence or at Clarkson or whatever, and you've got people who are here from New England states, or they might be from
international,
Seattle, or internationally as well. So they don't have any prior connection to the community. I was thinking when I was in college, I went to college at a small liberal arts school in Iowa, and had no prior connection to Mount Vernon, Iowa, where the college was. And at one point, I hosted, believe it or not, a radio show.
You?
Yeah,
I wouldn't believe it.
imagine that. A morning show, a wacky morning show on KRNL 89.7 with another guy named Mitch.
KRNL, the Colonel.
We refer to it as the Colonel.
Did you? Okay, good.
It was short for Cornell, which was the name of the college that I went to. But
not Cornell.
And right in the middle of Iowa, it was a perfect set of call letters if you were an Iowa radio station, because like we're in the middle of a cornfield. What are there in cornfields besides kernels? So anyway, we did the morning show, Mitch and Mitch in the morning. Mitch Squared, the Mitch Morning Zoo. There was a lot of Mitch going on, and
there's a lot of Mitch going on now.
There is a lot of Mitch. Sometimes there's too much Mitch. Too much Mitch, not enough love.
That's what we're calling this show from now on. Too much Mitch. Welcome back. Caller 2 from Seattle. What's your problem? Anyway, go ahead.
There's too much Mitch on the radio. So we did one year. We did an on-air radio marathon where the two of us stayed on the air for, it was like 4.5 days. We alternated. The nice thing about having a partner in this was somebody could go and sleep for 4 hours and then come back.
So it's not like you were trying to break that world record where you're staying up broadcasting consistently for like what did that dude? What was the guy's record that basically drove him insane?
I don't know, but
you know what I'm talking about.
I don't.
The broadcaster who was on air for like 6 consecutive days with no rest time at all. He didn't sleep, or he was taking like these like micro naps in between songs. You don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
He went insane. I've talked about this with Bob. Anyway, you weren't trying to break a world record.
I was not trying to break a world record, though I will say that the other Mitch was notoriously difficult to wake up. Okay. And so there were a couple of times where he was supposed to go off and nap for 4 hours and then come back and relieve me so that I could go nap for 4 hours. And, 6 hours later, I would have to call somebody and have them bang on the door to his dorm room to get him up. And then there were a couple of times where I played some really long tracks so that I could kind of like doze off at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Wait, so what was the point behind doing this other than to just do it because you're young and in college?
Right. Well, there was that, and the real desire to drink a lot of Jolt Cola. But we did it to raise money for the local Humane Society.
Cool.
And it is a small college radio station, and the truth was a lot of our classmates had gone off campus for those 4.5 days. So I think we raised like $400, but it was it was a big deal for a couple of college kids to do something and think about this community. I don't know why we chose the Humane Society. Neither of us had any pets that were at school with us, but I think we both thought it was and maybe somebody we knew was working at the Humane Society, but it seemed like a nice thing to do. The reason I'm asking this is it would be really easy for most college students to go through their entire 4 years without doing anything for the benefit of the immediate community around the school where they're going.
I would definitely say that was me. I was not focused on that at all. I wanted to spend all of my time writing and all of my time with my friends, and so like I was on the radio a lot, just like you were, and I worked also, so I did that a lot, and I was. I'm not going to say that I was a solipsist, but like your late teen years and early 20s are very ego driven. So I was just,
well, you're certainly self-focused in those years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just not at all, even though like I chose to stay here, I wasn't particularly concerned with the community around me. And it took, like I said, it took me graduating and becoming like a townie, in Potsdam and living here and really learning to love my community to want to give something back to it, which is what I've been doing the last couple of years.
It's interesting. You kind of went, your life has gone from, townie to college student to townie. Although I guess you didn't grow up in Potsdam.
No. I grew up in Raymondville, but I was still spending a lot of time in Potsdam. But anyway, I just tell people that I'm from Potsdam. Yeah, because that's easier, and I feel like it's the truth.
Right, because when you go to Paris or London or whatever, and you tell people you're from Raymondville, they just give you a blank look.
But yeah, when I tell them Potsdam, they've
Right.
got some frame of reference. Yeah. Anyway,
So the reason I'm bringing this up at all is because the guest on today's episode of Northwards, the podcast,
too much, Mitch.
is a woman named Sarah Thompson. Okay. She is a grad student, or for the next, as we're having this conversation, the next few days, a grad student at St. Lawrence University on her way out to do things in the world with her master's degree. Mm-hmm. And she, fairly early on, even before she got to St. Lawrence for grad school, knew that she wanted to give something to the world, and not necessarily the world immediately around her, but the greater world. And so she had this idea when she was an undergraduate and started this program called Sticks Together, which she's a hockey player. She played at Syracuse and then came to St. Lawrence for a year to play as a grad student. And her charity, Sticks Together, really kind of exploded in a good way.
Okay.
And
so what does she do?
So she is actually bringing hockey and the idea of play to some places around the world that you would not normally associate with ice.
Okay, so she's establishing like hockey leagues in like South America and stuff?
Not even a hockey league, just sort of bringing equipment and teaching young kids to play, in this case, street hockey in places like she went to South Africa. She most recently went to the Philippines. This year she's going to Africa.
Oh my God.
And I believe she's going to Kenya.
Okay.
Because I guess South Africa technically is in Africa. Mm-hmm. And she's done some really remarkable things and gotten other women's hockey players at the collegiate level to help her, and she's raised a lot of money and is starting to do things beyond just hockey. And it was a really interesting story that caught my attention. And while she was still, relatively close to us here at the St. Lawrence campus, I thought it was important to have her come in and talk a little bit about it as she gets ready to go out into the world after getting her graduate degree. And so, Sarah Thompson, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
So what was the spark for this project 3 years ago or probably more, I assume?
Yeah, I've always wanted to volunteer and to give back. I think it's something that I got from my mom. She's a teacher. She loves being around kids, and I see the impact she has on them. And I'd always thought that teaching kids how to play sports would be awesome. And what sport am I better at than hockey? None. So I figured that would be the best way to give back. And I had so many opportunities growing up to pick what I was passionate about. And I wanted to build something that gave other kids that chance.
You could easily, though, have found like a youth hockey team you're from Ottawa, right?
Yeah.
You could have found a youth hockey team to volunteer for. You could have worked with kids in school here. Where did the idea to marry this interest in volunteering with doing it with kids in other parts of the world come from?
Yeah, I think growing up in Ottawa, I had so much opportunity. That's not to say that everyone does, but I think we're very fortunate there and as well in the U.S. to have more opportunities than many. So I'd always wanted to have sort of that cultural exchange. I think that's really special, sharing something that you're really passionate about. As Canadians, hockey is a big part of who we are. So to be able to share that with others, but then also take part in it where they get to teach me their culture. I think that's really special too. You learn a lot about yourself and about the world by doing that. So I think that was a part of it, and just growing the game and bringing kids the game of hockey and giving them the opportunity to learn something different, because in Canada, everyone does. But, teaching it at the grassroots level with street hockey was really special.
Had you traveled overseas before?
I had traveled once to Slovakia. I played in the Women's World Championship at the U18 level. So with my hockey team, but beyond that, that's about it.
Well, and you're really going to places with Sticks Together that have no hockey tradition at all. Mm-hmm. It's not just that there aren't youth opportunities. There really aren't any hockey opportunities, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned your mom and how she works with kids as a teacher. Do you have any sense for like how it connected to you? Like what it is about you as Sarah Thompson that made doing this like really part of who you are?
While I was at Syracuse, there was a whole lot of talk, in my era of being there around NIL. And for me, being in a sport management major, we learn a lot of classes about like what you want your brand to look like, what you want to stand for. And I think, thanks to NIL, that conversation started in my head about what I want to be known for. And, that wasn't selling T-shirts and whatnot, but it started that conversation in my head of like, what do I want to stand for? And that was just bringing the game and giving back in some capacity. And I felt like this was a clear direction in my mind as to how I could do that. There's so many ways that, the other nominees of the Humanitarian Award, they'd all done amazing things themselves. But this to me was a clear path forward and something I felt like I could do, and hence why I continued to do it. And it was just a way for me to give back.
And you mentioned NIL, and for people who don't know, that name, image, and likeness.
Correct.
And that was the ruling that basically allowed college athletes to kind of do the same sort of endorsements that professional athletes could. And I hadn't realized that without the NIL rules that now exist, you weren't even allowed to do things like have clinics that you attached your names to before this, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's something that I've definitely taken advantage of back home in Ottawa. I run my own programs called the Thompson High Performance Summer Program. So what things I've done with NIL has gone in different directions, but Sticks Together was really something that I, didn't do for money, but it was something that I felt that I wanted to stand for as Sarah Thompson.
You've done 3 of these international trips so far. How do you connect with the communities that you do? How did you find the places that you went?
So the past 3 trips, I've done it through a volunteer program called IVHQ. And so how that works is you can go on their website and they have a whole bunch of different volunteer opportunities, whether it's through animal care, sport development, teaching, a whole bunch of opportunities. This is something that really stood out to me even when I was in high school. I had looked at these opportunities. And then from there, I thought, okay, if I could just do it through them, they organize the connection to the school, safety, transportation, all that sort of stuff. All I got to do on my end is just bring hockey there. It's something I'd love to get away from, because if I'm able to make connections with schools on my own, a lot of the money that I fundraise could go just directly towards that rather than getting down there. So it's something that I'm working on and trying to find ways to make connections kind of organically rather than through a third-party organization. But it's definitely helped with the planning.
Well, and you just have to bring hockey there right now, but it's not just that you're bringing the game. You have to bring the equipment too, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it comes on the plane with us. So we pack, roughly 50 hockey sticks in a big team size stick bag. And then we bring down goalie equipment, the nets in boxes, and everything that fits all into one big hockey bag. And then we lug it with us to the airport. We check it under the plane and just hope that it makes it there. So we haven't had any bumps so far, knock on wood, but it's definitely a part of the process.
Is it weird going through customs and having to explain to like the customs agents in the Philippines what this stuff is?
Absolutely. I think the first time I went on a trip to Argentina, they had no idea what it was. And I told them hockey, and they still had no idea what it was. In the Philippines, it was interesting because we had 2 layovers. So it was a long 36 hours, I think, of travel total. And, we had to get our equipment, once we had hit the next layover. And we had to talk to the airport staff and be like, can you please check it underneath? It's a big hockey stick. Like, please don't forget about it. Otherwise, we're never going to see it again. But we've had no bumps so far.
Wow. Of course, the places that you go, I mean, you mentioned this is street hockey you're teaching these kids, because these are typically places without a whole lot of ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually did get the opportunity to go on the ice, kind of separate from Sticks Together, but for one evening while I was in South Africa, I was staying in Cape Town, and they had a hockey rink inside a casino. Huh. I think it was one of 2 rinks in the entire country.
Wow.
So that was really the only time I had gotten the chance to, bring it towards the ice hockey part of it. So for the most part, it's just street hockey.
Did you grow up playing street hockey as well as ice hockey?
Absolutely. That's how I fell in love with it. And I think...
Really?
Yeah, and so many Canadians, I think the same way. I shouldn't speak for all of us, but I think it was very normal for me to just kind of wake up, look out the window on a summer day and see, the boys next door all playing, and I just wanted to be a part of it. And that's kind of where my love fell for it. And then it was the trading cards and the watching, TSN highlights in the morning. And then from there, it just kind of flourished.
Yeah. So what's the work that has to happen on this side of the ocean before you can go to the Philippines or South Africa or Argentina? Like, what do you have to do to get ready for these trips?
So there's a lot of fundraising involved, particularly last year because I took a much bigger team. So my first 2 years, it was just myself and one other person. Last year, there was a group of 6 of us total. So it was, more people to fundraise for. And then there's the stick collections is a huge part of it. My first year I did it, I was so successful that I didn't have to even do it the following year. They all stayed in my mom's garage, which she was really happy about.
I bet.
They all, you knock one over and they all fall over. So there's a lot of planning and logistics involved. And last year was special because I opened up an application for people to apply to see if they wanted to be sponsored to join us. And I had to pick, which was very interesting position for me to be in because a lot of incredible people that just wanted to be a part of it. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it.
Well, and that's really cool, though, that you have built this to the point that people really want to do it with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it made it more impactful. Like having the 6 of us there, I think it gave the opportunity for more kids to get, more like one-on-one attention, when learning hockey. And I think a huge part of Six Together too is we really wanted to be able to document a lot of this, and I think it helps with the fundraising and whatnot. And having more than a couple people allowed for, one person to kind of take some photos and the rest of us to just be playing rather than the 2 people, one behind the camera, one, it's not the same impact.
Yeah, for sure. Well, so then let's take last year, for example. You're working with kids in this, I don't know how big the community is in the Philippines, but what happens once you touch down there? Like how does and how long do you stay there? How does that whole process play out?
Every trip's a little different, and you kind of go into it just hoping it all works out because you don't have too much contact with the program until you get there. So you might have one person's phone number on WhatsApp, and when you touch down, you just hope they'll be there to pick you up. In the Philippines, they picked us up. It was a 3-hour drive from the airport. It was a very remote community, which was awesome because we got to know everyone there. So once we arrived, everyone was really welcoming, and we just kind of showed them the equipment, and we're like, all right, like we'd love to do this tomorrow. It was really cool. The community at Tigman, they put a bunch of sign-up sheets around, and they had kids write their name and their age, which was really special because it felt more organized and there was excitement building around the community. So it's a little bit, you just show up and see what happens.
It must feel like you're touching down on another planet. I mean, like this is something that's so complete. I mean, I'm sure these kids have probably never seen a hockey stick before, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion at first, and a lot of children think it's a weapon, and there's a learning curve showing them how to hold the stick. But especially in the Philippines on our last trip, they learned really quickly, and it was really special to watch. And by the end, they were asking about like real rules, like how offside work, and is there shifts, like because before it was like, all right, there's 20 kids here playing 10v10, and that's how it's going to happen, right? But they really wanted to get into the nitty gritty of the game of hockey, which was special.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, and I've seen the video of at least some of the time in the Philippines, and I was amazed at how good the kids looked.
Yeah, it was awesome, and there was one special little guy. His name was Zarex, and he was, shouldn't say one of my favorites, but he was. He was really good, and he was one of the only ones that really got to understand that, like, if you move away from pressure and pass it, it creates space. Whereas the rest of them, they're like bees, just kind of floating around. But he really got the game, so it was kind of special. And the 2 of us would always be on the same team, and we'd make some stuff happen. So,
do you get the sense? Because I mean, a lot of these places you go, soccer, I'm sure, is a much bigger part of the sports landscape. Do you feel like some of them get the game because of, it's not totally similar to soccer, but, there are some things that probably work from one game to the other.
Yeah, I think that definitely plays a piece into it. And in the Philippines, they played a lot of basketball and volleyball. So, like, they had played a lot of different sports. And when I'd shown them pictures of hockey, they were kind of like, oh, yeah, I've seen that before. And they kind of started to piece it together. And the more you talk about strategy, the more they're able to relate it to other sports.
Yeah. with the potential exception of that one kid you're talking about, and the chances that he's going to go on to do hockey after this are probably still small.
Right.
Like, what do you hope you leave these kids with? Because there's not like, they're not playing juniors and they're not playing peewee, then midgets, then whatever.
Right.
Like, what do you hope you leave them with besides hockey?
And that's a great question. And as much as I would love to say that I could be there, full time and give them those opportunities, unfortunately, I can't. So it's a question that I've thought a lot about. And I think a big piece of it is just giving them this experience that, other kids might not be able to say that they have. And I think a part of it now is just building those relationships with that community that goes beyond when we're there. So even if they're not still playing hockey, I have a connection with them that if there's support they need, whether it's for education or just for surviving, I am a resource to them and for those kids. For example, there was recently a massive flood in Tigman Village, and it was really sad to see, and it really hit me when I'd heard about it. And I was able to instantly send them $1,000 and be like, go use this to create these relief packages and get food to the community. So, and that's where it goes beyond hockey, right? That, even though I can't be there to continuously teach it, we've built a connection through hockey, that love that we share. So,
well, and so then, you said there were 5 other hockey players that went with you. How do you think these trips change you and your fellow hockey players?
It's incredible. My life has been changed forever in so many ways. I actually still wear a bracelet that I have on right now. And it was a little boy who was in a street hockey game. He was in nets and he had a whole bunch of beaded bracelets on his wrist. And I went up to him and I said I thought they were really cool. And without hesitation, he said, "Which one do you want?" And it took me aback that he was just that forward. He didn't even ask. It was just "Which one do you want?" And I told him I thought that one was cool. He gave it to me, and it's something that it carries with me everywhere I go. Just be kind and lend a helping hand. These kids are so grateful for what they have, and I think the world needs more of that.
Do you think it was? This was the 3rd time you had done this. Mm-hmm. Was it a big eye opener for the other players you brought along?
I think it was. Madison Primo, she had come with me to South Africa too, so she kind of knew what to expect. I think I'd done a good job at preparing them. When we did the application, I was like, okay, this is not going to be a vacation. I'm going to warn you, this is where we're going to stay, and this is what it might look like. And I wanted to make sure it was the right type of people coming aboard. But I think there were some that were just truly transformed. There was one girl on the team that just didn't want to leave. It was really hard for her to leave. She had made such a connection with those kids. So to be able to give other people that opportunity is really amazing too.
You just won the Hockey Humanitarian Award for, this is for all of college hockey, men and women. Mm-hmm. It was the 3rd time you'd been nominated for it. Yeah. Hard to figure out the right question, but it must be at some level, you're doing it for the kids, but mm-hmm. Being validated by your peers must mean an awful lot.
It does. I think, my whole career, there's been ups, there's been downs like every athlete. And coming to St. Lawrence was a chance for me to be a part of a team that's really competitive, which I was really excited about. My impact in terms of, on-ice production might have looked different. So this to me was something really special because it's something I am most proud of my entire career. Not the points, not the championships, it was this. So for it to kind of be commemorated with that was really special for me. Not that I needed it, but it did give me that validation. And I think more than anything, it inspired me to be all right, what's next? How can I make this even bigger now? I felt that validation and it fueled me to drive forward. Yeah.
So what is next? What happens to Sticks Together once, college is just a memory?
So we're actually going to Kenya. My hockey team with St. Lawrence Women's Hockey, we're taking a trip to Kenya. And, I approached Coach Chris Wells and I said, hey, I know we've got an agenda kind of sorted out as to what we're doing as a team and, the activities we're going to take part in, but I'd love to bring Sticks Together into it. So we're actually going to spend 1 or I think 2 days with an all-girls school and then the Matheri Youth Sports Association. And we're hoping to just bring down the Sticks and just get into some games. I'm sure they'll teach us their sports as well. So there's definitely a really great opportunity there. And then from there, I want to continue doing what I'm doing with Sticks Together, whether it's a one trip a year or if it becomes something where it's more of a scholarship. I would love to be able to sponsor, current student athletes to be able to do what I did. So there's a lot of ideas floating around up here.
I have seen recently, I think Kenya has its first ever national hockey team, right?
They do, the Ice Lions. And I've made a connection with someone that reached out. So there's a great opportunity there for collaboration, and I would love to be able to get on the ice with them.
Well, and you might even be able to be in a position where, like, leaving them with this stuff, at least the kids will have an opportunity to look up to something there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the resources are scarce, and they're always looking for more equipment, and, the funds alone just to be able to book the ice out is complicated. So there's a lot we can do there.
Your college hockey career is over, yes?
It is over,
Is
sadly.
that surreal?
It is. I think it's been a wild ride, and I've, having been to Syracuse, I did 4 years at Syracuse and then came to St. Lawrence. I tell everyone I truly had the best of both worlds. Both programs, both schools are very different, and I'm so honored to have been able to experience both of those things. And I can't speak higher of St. Lawrence and the staff and my teammates. It's been the best way to end it.
Do you know what you want to do with your life?
It's a great question. I think.
Sorry for asking it.
Every graduate student in this town here is thinking the same thing. What do we do with our lives? I think for me, I really want to be a part of athlete representation. I've done some coaching on my own, and I've also done some advising for younger elite players, and I'd really love to do that at the professional level. And I think what would be a really great opportunity to kind of bridge the gap between, being an agent and then what I do with Sticks Together is I would love to learn about what athletes are passionate about in terms of community initiatives, and helping those dreams come alive, because, not everyone like I did had that opportunity I had so many resources that I could use. So many people helped me with Sticks Together, and I was fortunate to have made it work. But there's some people that have these ideas, they just don't have the time, the resources, or don't know where to start. So I'd love to be able to help them do that.
Wow. Sarah Thompson, good luck with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for sharing this story with us, and congratulations on the award. It's well-deserved.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been great being here.
Sarah Thompson is graduating with a graduate degree from St. Lawrence University. She was a women's hockey player for St. Lawrence, and before that for Syracuse University. But more to the point of today's episode of Northwards, she's the founder of Sticks Together, a charity that has brought hockey and hockey equipment to some younger kids in various places around the world. You can learn more from a link at ncpr.org/northwards.
I think it's really great that she's bringing hockey to people who otherwise wouldn't be exposed to it. But where was she when I was 9 and I wanted to play hockey and my parents wouldn't let me? I think she probably could have convinced them that hockey would have been good for me. But instead, I got into music and became a ne'er-do-well, and now I'm covered in tattoos and I look like a hooligan.
Which could still hold true if you had become a hockey player.
I could have been a hockey hooligan. Yeah.
Well, but at least you had something in common with a hockey player. You both use sticks.
We do, yeah. But I'm beating a lot more things. Well, I guess, are you beating a hockey puck?
No, you might be beating up a
rival player, yeah.
Exactly.
I will say there's a lot less fist fighting in the music that I play than in you know what? I think what I really wanted to do is just beat somebody up. That's probably it.
I'm going to leave the studio now. Ethan, tell us who produces this program.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me, Ethan Shanty. To find out more about this program, listen to past episodes, and support the show, visit ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.
I always just wanted to drive the Zamboni.